Well, when looking at how to innovate your business model as an agency, there's one specific name and agency that comes to mind who are pioneering a new model in terms of how they bill, so on and so forth. Joining us now to speak to us a little bit more about innovating the business model in a marketing context is Tom Manners, MD at Clockwork Media. Tom, innovating the model, let's start the conversation.
Yeah, well, thanks. It's a good question. Look, I think the marketing business model when it comes to agencies is reasonably outdated to begin with. So to be honest with you, we're not starting with a particularly high bar. The concept of selling hours and sort of creative turnaround has been around since the 50s. So at least in terms of Clockwork's situation, what we've tried to do is just get back to basics and really rethink those models from the ground up and apply the traditions where they fit best, but also try and envision new ways of possibly going about things. And then I think in our personal context, what was important was coming from a position of not having worked in advertising prior to starting this agency. So I think the industry at large is well positioned right now, both in South Africa and globally, to be innovated upon, and there's a lot of conversation going on about it at the moment. I think it's really about bravery and a willingness to break away from the mold of what advertising has been and has become over the last sort of 60 to 70 years.
Now, how do you begin to have that conversation with clients when it comes to what line items look like?
Yeah, some of them are really receptive to it. Some of them are less receptive to it. I think what you find is that the larger clients are more used to the status quo. So in those situations, trying to push against, like I said, the proven business model between agency and client can be a little bit challenging. But you have many businesses out there, SMEs, medium-sized businesses, and sort of really visionary CMOs in larger organizations that are willing to break the mold and kind of are looking to partner with agencies to get away from those line items, as you said, get away from the hour-based billing model, get to a position where the engagement is based on outputs rather than time spent. Because, if you really think about it, at the end of the day, billing time and paying for time is in its own way almost defeatist because it encourages the usage of that specific block of time regardless of whether the agency or the group could get a particular job done in 10% of that time. So I think it's about bravery.
Now I would imagine that it's this kind of thinking that is attracting the right people to Clockwork Media, both as clients and as employees.
Yeah, I think we've been very lucky. I think it's any advertising agency's mandate to do its best to position itself within the market to attract the best talent. At the end of the day, this is a talent-driven business. I think a lot of our employees are on board with this notion and are enthusiastic about changing things. That being said, though, it doesn't happen overnight. So it's a constant iteration. It's a constant effort of improvement to get to a point, where we feel happy and the client feels comfortable about the new direction that we're heading in. But certainly at a commercial level and at a business unit director level, our employees are on board with the idea, and we're getting away more and more from that time-based billing method.
And just as we begin to land this conversation, how much of your approach in terms of what you're doing is proactive versus what the market's calling for?
I think it's probably a mix, and I think the one feeds into the other. I think the market knows that it needs to change, or rather that it needs a different service model. I don't think it's really defined what that actually means, so it's up to the agencies then to go and be proactive about showing them what that alternative model might actually entail. So it's a mix. It's definitely demand from the market, but not necessarily specific demand. And then the agency being proactive and hungry enough to go out there and show them that there is a new way, there is a different way of doing things.
And Tom, let's land it with one line, your challenge to other agencies in the local scene.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think challenge to agencies within the local scene is innovate the business model and transform.
Just be like Tom Manners. That's Tom Manners, there, MD at Clockwork Media. Thanks so much for stopping by.